Hi, we're the Village Homeschoolers. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Jen. Today we're going to talk about why adults also need a homeschool co-op.
Welcome to the Village. We're adults and we need our homeschool co-op just as much as our kids do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Why you as the adult need community as well.
Yeah, because if it wasn't for this place, I would never leave my house.
And we've saved Jen from a life of hermitage.
And my child.
Yeah. So we'll start out with a story. So, I guess it's almost 2 weeks ago. My husband woke up in the middle of the night and he was like, I'm having trouble breathing. I'm in so much pain. He had been not feeling well for like a week. And he's like, I'm going to go to the ER. And so in the middle of the night, he drove himself to the ER, which in retrospect, he should not have driven himself, but okay. And he drove himself to the ER. I'm, of course, awake. My kids are sleeping. And I'm like, okay, we need to wait and see what the doctor says. We're unsure. Long story short, we don't need to get into my husband's extensive medical history, but he needed to have a pretty emergent surgery. And he was going to end up being in the hospital for like 5-6 days. So it was like 4 a.m. I texted Jen because Jen knew that he hadn't been feeling well and that things were kind of escalating. And I said, hey, I may need help. And this is so silly that this is what I asked for. But I said, I need to go get my husband's car because he's going to be in the hospital for a while. I wasn't like, oh, I need, anything concrete. Like his car was fine in the hospital parking lot. But I was just like, we're going to go get it. And this is going to be fine because Jen and her husband will help me go get it. And so we ended up not actually getting in the car. But the important part was about that is over those next 5-6 days that he was in the hospital and a little bit longer because he was then in bed for another 4 days recovering at home, I was kind of piecemeal talking to people in our homeschool co-op. One of them had actually had the same surgery herself. And she was like, here, I'm going to give you this. He's going to want to take this after he has the surgery. It's going to help. She brought me food. Another family brought me dinner one night because I was just like, I got to feed my kids and my husband's been in the hospital for 4 days and I didn't plan for this. I had somebody take one of my children and keep her occupied while I was actually going to pick my husband up from the hospital because she was not going to do well seeing him in a wheelchair and, medicated and those kinds of things. I had people that took my kids to activities, karate and dance, and they watched my children. They fed one of those nights, one of the members of the community fed my kids dinner because I was waiting to hear back from the surgeon and my husband had been in surgery way too long. So he's fine, but there had been some complications. And she just took the kids, took them to karate and then fed them dinner and kept them until it was bedtime. So this was not something planned and I am not great. And all the people who knew about this are probably laughing right now because they were, Jen included, harassing the heck out of me. Like, can we come take your kids? Can we come bring you food? Do you need this? Do you need this?
Because she does this to us.
Well,
she's a very, very kind and wonderful friend and very aggressively loves us.
Aggressive love. Yeah. And I'm not great about asking for help. And it was just this whole thing. There were several nights that we would not have, I just was not emotionally prepared to feed my kids and other people fed my kids. I couldn't get them to activities. Their mental health was not going to tolerate certain things and people were able to do that for me and help me. And at the root of it, that's why we're so invested in our homeschool co-op. Not because of art class and music class. And yeah, that stuff's great and fun and we're super glad to do it. And we do make memories with our kids that way. But because at the end of the day, the community helps uphold the adults when they need it, the whole family unit. Because, that phrase, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. Yeah. It's because the mental health of the parents in the household is crucial to functioning essentially. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about why adults need homeschool communities and co-ops too. So other than the obvious, they need communities to help educate their children in. It's a lot about support. So resources. Sometimes it is just bringing somebody dinner.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it is just, hey, we're having a hard time right now. We will give you a gas card. We've done that before.
Or pay for your tuition for classes.
Yes, yes. Or I have this leftover curriculum. Would you like to peek through it? Don't waste your money buying something new. You can borrow my library of old history books.
Or I have clothes for a 4-year-old. Do you want all his clothes?
Right, exactly. That kind of support is so intrinsically missing in society, especially if we opt out of the mainstream. And so therefore we're able to provide it in a homeschool co-op.
Like we do meal trains when people have babies. And,
Yes.
We get to do a lot of nice stuff for people to help support them.
Right. Exactly. I think that's really important. The other thing is, I think, we're all worried with homeschoolers, like, are the kids socializing? Are they getting that socialization? And then it's like, hey, what about me? I need to socialize. I'm a human being too.
Yeah.
Yeah, adult interaction is like super important.
It is. And even though we discourage that sometimes when we're trying to do announcements in the morning.
Yeah, like, don't talk over the other adults talking.
Yeah. But the parents really want to talk and catch up and have interactions too, because a lot of times we're home all week with our kids.
Right.
And not seeing a lot of other people.
Right, exactly. Especially if your other partner, your co-parent, a grandma or grandpa, they're like, sometimes you can be like ships in the night. Like, especially if you're working. I'm going to go work tonight. You're going to work during the day. Everyone I'm talking to is under the age of 11.
Yeah.
And a dog,
Yeah.
like, oh gosh. And so that adult interaction is crucial because sometimes you just need to be able to express something to an adult.
Yeah. Cause like sometimes it's like, I don't want to talk to a 5-year-old again about what my favorite type of bear is.
Right.
It's just, or whatever.
That's true. That's such a 5-year-old. Yeah. Or like one of my kids is, he asks the question. He'll be like, hey, mom, blah, blah, blah. And he'll ask the question and then he won't listen to the answer. So I'm going to answer that same question multiple times. Like, hey, 10 minutes later, hey, mom, what time does karate start? 4:00. Hey, mom, what time does karate start? 4:00. And he's definitely like high energy, little boy. He's just not got the focus to listen to lots of things, but he asks the same question a lot. And when I'm tired, oh my gosh, that's exhausting.
Yeah. My son went through a phase where it was like I was saying with the bears, he'd be like, do you like better a polar bear or a panda bear? And then I'm like, okay, I guess a panda bear. And he's like, okay, what about a panda bear and a black bear? Yeah. I'm like, okay, I guess still a panda bear. Okay, a panda bear and a grizzly bear. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I need to talk to an adult.
Yeah, exactly. My youngest is the same way. Like, he really fixates on things. And so, like, he's a huge sports fanatic. And he'll, like, interrogate me and his 2 siblings who are not sports fanatics. Who do you think is going to be the better quarterback for? Like, yeah. And he knows everyone. He's like got a little bit of a phenom brain for this. He knows all the quarterbacks in the NFL, all the teams, all the it's a thing.
He's like a savant.
He's like a ESPN savant. Anyway, but yes. But it's hard. My husband kind of cares enough and he knows a lot of that stuff. And my dad knows a lot of that stuff, but like they are not available to talk to him about it during daytime hours. And so when his mind wanders, he wants to talk about it. And so what happens is he talks to me and I answer kind of, or I go, I don't know, which is not really satisfactory. So then he moves to the other 2 people, his sisters, who really don't care. And then they start arguing about, why are you always asking us questions about football? It's all you want to talk about, blah, blah, blah. I don't like football. I don't want to sit next to you at lunch if we're going to talk about football.
This is why I have an only child.
Yeah. And so it's like, and then by the end of that, on repeat, 5 to 6 days a week, I'm like, if somebody else doesn't come into this house and talk rationally to me, I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
So I need to talk to adults on Friday. And I know that, I think that's why social media is so popular with parents. But at the end of the day, like, I also just need to have a natural conversation where I can hear an adult's voice. And, somebody's not like, hey, mom.
Especially like some of us don't work because we're stay-at-home parents. So a lot of us aren't getting that interaction at work. So
right.
We aren't getting it. And we also need it.
We're also not getting it in the car. I always point this out to people. They're like, oh, I joked when my kids were a little bit younger. I was like, oh, we're going to go on a car ride and I'm going to get a coffee and they're going to get a treat and we're just going to like drive and maybe the youngest child will nap and it'll be really peaceful. But then they're asking questions. And the conversation's still going, and you don't want to not talk to your kids. So then you're like, well, let's put a book on tape. But then you're like, how many times can I listen to Dragon Loves Tacos on tape or on the DVR that you have, portable DVR, you know?
Speaking of support, one time Brittany took my child to see that in live theater.
Oh, I did. Okay, so I'm about to call Jen out, and she will admit this freely. Jen doesn't like live theater.
No.
At all.
I'm not cultured.
And I do. And if her son's going to attend live theater, he's going to attend it with me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the kind of support I need.
Yeah. So there you go. Right there. Support.
Yeah. And we also got to remember that a lot of these people around here, in particular where we live, there's a lot of military. Mm-hmm. So there are people, including myself, that have no family nearby.
Yeah.
So these people have kind of become a family to me.
Right, exactly. And I think that's happening more and more, for better or worse. You know, we're leaving the village we grew up in and we're venturing out, and we're doing it for a lot of reasons. We may just be like, I don't really want to live the same life that my parents did, or we may be like, I need a job and the job is here and I'm having to leave my home because of current economic situations, you know, those kinds of things. And so when you do that, you know, what do you normally do with family? Holidays.
Yeah.
I celebrate holidays with my family. I celebrate birthdays with my family. Those kinds of things. Well, what do you do when they're not there? Or, you know, travel's expensive. Mm-hmm. Or when you can't travel, we watched all that play out with COVID and things like that.
Yeah. Or when you have to pack a car seat or two.
Oh, you had I had the car sick toddler. Yeah, driving was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a car sick adult, so
Yeah, Jen.
driving is not fun.
I've driven with Jen. We have to drive with the window down. She's like a puppy. Yeah.
It's true. I was like, turn off the heat. Oh my God.
Yeah. So yeah, like we've done Thanksgiving together. Mm-hmm. We've done Halloween together. We do birthdays together.
Easter's.
Almost,
yeah,
almost exclusively. Some families, if let's say you live in like an apartment complex that doesn't do like trick-or-treating and you want to celebrate Halloween, if your community either has people who live in neighborhoods that celebrate Halloween that are willing to share with you, which we've done multiple times. I have gone with Jen in her neighborhood, or like, this is really important to, you know, me, but I don't have this economic situation or the geographic situation to do it, then we have other people that can help with that. Or that may be the only Christmas, Hanukkah celebration that your child gets is what they do with their homeschool co-op. Mm-hmm. So that is, you know, that's important. People become like a family.
And that ties into like childcare as well.
Oh yeah.
Before I met this group of people, I had to bring my child to work with me sometimes. And I worked at a therapeutic group home with teenagers that were very violent. And there was a time I had to lock him in a room because a girl was having a freak out. And I was like, I can't do this. But
Right.
I had nobody. I didn't know anybody. I was new to the area. I'm introverted.
Right.
I don't have a super easy time making friends.
And your husband was working at the same time.
And my husband was in the, you know, either in the military or when he got out, he's just working all the time. So I had nobody to do it. So it was like, he would have to take off work if I had to go to the doctor's, or I had to take my toddler to a dentist appointment. It was horrible.
Right, yeah,
right?
You're having a pap smear with all your children watching.
What are they doing?
Multiple times that's happened to me. Yeah. No, I mean, really though, that's the reality. It's like, and okay, yes, you can take all your children to a pap smear. That's fine. But like, for instance, when my husband was just in the hospital, I was not allowed to bring my children in to see him. It's 16 and over right now for visitors, and during the visiting hours. And because of COVID, it's an only one visitor a patient policy. So even if all my kids were teenagers, we couldn't have all gone. And there are some, like, you can get on care.com and find a babysitter. And I'm not saying that's bad,
Yeah.
but like,
Do what you have to
my
do, right?
children with an adult they did not know to go see my husband in the hospital
When they were already traumatized from the whole situation.
yeah, was probably not the best scenario. So they were in the care of other adults for that week plus that he was with, they were with adults they trusted and adults they loved, and the adults that cared about them. And so that was really good because they were able to feel safe, and I was able to feel safe, and I had that system in place. And if I didn't have belong to the homeschool co-op, I wouldn't have had those people available. I mean, like, even like driving, like, it makes me nervous when people are driving with my kids, but I know the people in our homeschool co-op. I know we have proper car seats. We have appropriate, they're not, they don't have too much road rage. So I mean, they're law-abiding, licensed adults. So I'm not worried about them taking my children to things that maybe I can't go to because I'm in the middle of dealing with a situation. That's really helpful. And well, I mean, even pre-COVID, Jen took my kids to co-op several times because my little one was sick or something like that. Now we can't. If anybody's sick, you're not going. But at the time that was okay. And
it's so great to have people that you trust look after your children.
Right. Exactly. Because we're all going to need help at some point.
And it's okay to ask for help, right, Brittany?
We're getting there. Yeah.
I had to directly text her husband to tell him, if Brittany needs help, let me know.
Except he was medicated beyond belief. So he was probably like, what? Yeah. Well, there's another. So if you want to go back to that story, one of our co-op members is a nurse in that hospital. And because of COVID policy, the visiting hours were very short. I couldn't go very much. So she saw my husband post-surgery before I did multiple times because she's not a surgical nurse, but she knows me, knew he was there, was in the hospital working, is super supportive and lovely. And she was like, okay, we're going to, go check on him. And she would text me, I've laid eyes on him. He's okay. The incision looks good, blah, 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 all these other things that she would inform me. And I was super grateful. And without co-op, I wouldn't have even known her, and I wouldn't have built such a trusting relationship. She actually is how I got my car back because her husband was like, she was at work. She took the keys out of his ICU room and gave them to her husband, and her husband drove the car back to me. Yeah. So I didn't have to drag my kids out to do it. And it was just super great. And so those kinds of things, those like, hey, I'm pitching in to help you. You don't get that if you're kind of isolating in a community of one. So, yeah.
And the last thing we just want to talk about is accountability.
Yeah. I in a perfect world, we're all self-starters. If all these people weren't counting on me to get there on Friday and do my part, there'd be a lot of Fridays I'd sleep in.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I'm really guilty of this too, because if somebody's relying on me, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But if nobody's relying on me, I'm not going to do it.
Right, exactly. and like our kids are, especially homeschool kids, they can be real flexible. So they're like, okay, well, we can do school today at 2:00 or we can do it at 10:00. It doesn't a big deal.
Or we'll do double schoolwork tomorrow just so we can take the day off.
Yeah. Like, oh, you want to sleep in? No big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll get to watch a movie in the morning, which I don't normally get to do. So kids are not responsible for keeping their parents accountable. Other adults who are invested in your family are. And so that's a huge perk. And that's really great because, like Jen has said before, if you didn't know us, you wouldn't leave your house. We've saved her from being a hermit.
There's like times that I meant to take off a co-op because I had surgery on my forehead and somebody else had a sick kid. And I was like, I can't leave Brittany. I just can't do it. I can't in my heart do that to Brittany, even though she would have been fine.
Yeah.
I don't really do that much, but
no,
it's enough. It's enough for me to be accountable. And I showed up with my big bandage on my forehead, looking like an idiot.
She couldn't bend over.
Couldn't bend over.
I turned around and she was like deep plieing to pick something up.
There were lots of squats. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying do that. By all means, if you've had surgery, please rest. That was probably not her most healthy choice.
That's fine.
But we are accountable to each other and to other people. Like if you're saying I'll teach a class for 8 weeks, you're much more likely to show up and provide that environment for your children than you would be if you were just like, yeah, maybe I'll come to that play date, or maybe I'll go grab a cup of coffee with you.
Or they're going to probably cancel anyway, right?
Right.
Because, we're going to be there no matter what.
Yeah. We were actually just talking with a new family in the area, and she was saying to us, she's like, we're really hoping to join your co-op soon. She was talking to us for a while, and she was like, I'm really looking for the consistency and the accountability. And she was actually one of the first families that ever told us that. We know that about ourselves, but she was the first family that ever expressed that was why they wanted to join. And she's like, in the past, when I've joined just play groups or things, they're very spontaneous, which can be good, but sometimes they'll go weeks without meeting or seeing each other. And if your priority is community and socialization for your child, that can be a detriment. And we are kind of, no matter what, no matter when, we'll put snowsuits on those kids and do it anyway.
Yeah, because we plan field trips, and there's a lot of field trips I don't want to do. Even the ones I plan, I don't want to show up to. But I do it anyway for my child.
Right. And there's 40 other children signed up to go, and we're committed to making it work. And almost always, we don't regret showing up and being accountable. Because it's that human nature, right? It's that human element of like, I'm tired, I want to sleep.
I don't know. I kind of regretted going to Valentine's Day in the blizzard.
But the kids did. Well, that's a funny story. So we talked about our Glacier Park incident when we traipsed a bunch of kids in an April snowstorm through a park and they froze to death. And then we proceeded to do a craft and they ended up accidentally dyeing their hands blue on top of it.
And it was pouring. Well, it was a mix.
Pouring. It was sleeting.
It was sleeting. It was a mix between it would snow and then it would rain, and we're trying to do a craft while it was pouring out.
And kids, like literally we left and tons of kids were crying. Like we were like, it just was an series of unfortunate events. Well, we told you all that story a couple weeks ago. And then another one of our co-op members was listening to it, and her 12-year-old was listening with her. And she was like, Mom, that was super fun. And we were like, what? She's like, yeah, it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. And she was like, you guys are being too hard on yourselves. Like our kids were actually remember that fondly.
Yeah, well, I think the toddlers did not remember it fondly, or the parents of toddlers.
Well, but the toddlers have moved on.
They don't remember.
They don't have that long-term memory yet. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of crying toddlers. And
but toddlers sometimes cry for, the tree is not the right color. So
this is true.
So yeah, you can't really
I want
judge
that in my left hand and not in my right.
Yeah. You can't really judge that by toddlers. But yeah, so I think, even when we're like, oh, I have a headache. I had a headache yesterday. We left co-op and I was like, oh, I clearly didn't drink enough water and I have a headache. Yeah, I think that the kids don't regret it. And that's why we do it. And that's why we need it, because we're better parents, better homeschoolers, if there's other adults keeping us accountable.
Mm-hmm. A viewer asked us a question.
Oh, good. Let's answer it.
What are the homeschooling pros and cons?
Oh, well, how much time do we have, Jen? Okay. I'll just list off a pro, then you list off a pro, and we'll see. You get to spend a lot of time with your children.
That could be a pro or a con.
That's true. And that's why adults need a homeschool co-op. Okay, what else?
Well, I think being able to structure your child's education to what you want your child to learn, whether it's religious, whether it's, I really want my child to learn more math, or I want it to be science-based, or we want to do literature a lot of reading. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's true.
Depending on where you're located.
That's true. Pro, you don't have to get out of your pajamas to get your kids to school.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Cons. Well, that's sometimes a con, talking about accountability. Well, you can go through a week without wearing real clothes.
Well, I don't leave my house.
Yeah.
When I put on pants, my husband goes, where are you going? Why are you all dressed up?
My husband does the same thing.
It's like, I'm just wearing pants.
Yeah. I actually put on something that didn't have fluffy snowflakes on it. Yeah. Pros and cons.
Well, the cons, I think the biggest con is people asking you about socialization.
Well, that, or the other thing I find, and I think this may be indicative of our society in general, but like they'll go, oh, where do you go to school? And you'll go, oh, we homeschool. And they will immediately tell you why they don't. And you're like, no, it's totally fine.
I'm not judging you.
Yeah. I'm not saying you need to. Just, you said my child went to Bob Smith Middle School, and I said, oh, we homeschool when you asked, and that I didn't need an explanation about.
Yeah, because it immediately follows by, oh, I don't have the patience for that.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, then it's, what's 7 times 7?
Yeah. Or that's true. They quiz your kids.
Yeah, there's a lot
That's actually a really huge pet peeve of ours. If you're listening to this and you're not a homeschooler, please don't quiz homeschoolers.
No.
We don't like it. It's insulting.
We don't do it to public schoolers.
And we don't walk up to your kid and go, who was the first president of Argentina? You know.
And why don't you know that?
Yeah.
You must have a bad teacher.
I don't know that. And I was in public, private, and homeschooled. Yeah. So everybody failed me, apparently, according to those standards. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I think that, that's definitely true. Those awkward interactions with other people who don't quite grasp what's going on. But there's lots of pros. I mean, well, this is probably a pro more for my children, maybe a con for me. My kids would not function on a public school eating schedule.
Oh, second breakfast.
Yeah, and third, and 14 snacks. You've met my youngest.
Yeah.
That kid is hungry literally when he's cleaning up his breakfast dishes and then lunch, And like, so, and it's great because I have also the freedom and ability to feed them. We have a few allergies. I can make sure that what they're eating is safe for them to eat. Those kinds of things. So that's really good. I mean, that is a pro, even though some days it feels like a con for me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm done cooking food for these people that I live with.
Sometimes I think the lack of resources sometimes for homeschooling is a con. Like, they don't participate in free sports programs in school, or they don't get free band lessons.
Well, it depends on where you live. But
Yeah.
But sometimes you can do it in the public school system, but there's strings attached that homeschoolers are just not really willing to do. And we get that. Yeah, but it is
because we have to pay for all of our curriculum.
Or we have to build it. And
Yeah.
and we're obviously big champions of building what you want for your kids, but orchestra is really hard to build.
But we should have a homeschool band. That would be amazing.
I was in one as a child. Years ago, when I was a child, when I was homeschooling, I was in a homeschool band. But we had parents who were musicians.
You're really cool.
Yeah, it wasn't cool. By society standards then or now. But yeah. But so, I mean, it is totally possible, but it takes a lot of work. And like, you need the right people to do that, right? Because I'm willing to teach a lot of things, but I am no musician.
Yeah, I am not either.
And so, the mom I'm thinking of who actually ran the homeschool band literally played like 20 instruments.
Oh.
Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah, so it's just, that is a con sometimes. You're reinventing the wheel.
Yes. And another con is just, this doesn't apply to all families because there are obviously families that have both parents working, but I do think sometimes I'm unable to work a traditional job.
Right.
Because I'm home with my child, which is wonderful and I respect that, but sometimes it's, it is a little bit harder for us.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And there are, I think, as in anything, there's lots of resources out there, but sometimes they cost money. Mm-hmm. And so if you are a one-income family and you're on a really tight budget, like it can be really hard to be like, I'm going to try out curriculums because I want to know what works. Well, can't try out curriculums at X amount of dollars.
Yeah, $137 just for my literature curriculum for the year.
Right, exactly. And so it's, you can't hop around like that, which is really a good reason to be in a homeschool community as an adult because we can share resources. I'm not advocating for sharing things illegally that you did not pay for. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. But if you're like, I just want to look at that writing curriculum before I go ahead and spend the $75. Yeah, so I think, that's why the homeschool co-op community exists, hopefully, and you can find one because it'll help you support you in that con and make it maybe a pro.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, most of the cons are...
It's a two-headed.
Yeah.
A double-edged sword sounds violent. Maybe like a coin. It's a coin with a head and a tail.
Yeah, I feel like there are minor inconveniences. It depends on how, career-oriented you are as a parent, maybe. I don't...
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. I think, and the pros and cons will be different for every family, right?
For us, it was just, there was a lot more pros for us.
Right.
So that's why we decided it was right for us.
Well, big pro. I don't know if there's a con to this. You can take vacations during off vacation times and hours.
It's true. A lot less. It's snowing out. There's a lot less people at Disney World this time of year.
That's true. Well, and then it's like, we can do school on Saturdays if we want to. We can take a day off.
Yeah.
I don't have to do school tomorrow because I'm tired and there's a free day at the aquarium down the street from me. And so we're going to go do that. It's that kind of flexibility is a huge pro.
It's amazing. My husband had to go to Italy for work one time, and my son and I were able to join him because he was going in the middle of spring, and why not go to Italy, right?
Right.
And we didn't have to worry about schoolwork or making up school. So we got to go to Italy for 2 weeks, and it was awesome.
Yeah. And even when I'm like, I don't know, well, it depends on the day. Some days we're doing a full load of school in my house, but then some days we don't do very much. So it's like, okay, we're going to do some school in the morning and then we're going to go to the beach. Mm-hmm. We live up north, so it is cold. So when it is warm, we like to do as much as we can outside, as much as we possibly can. But we also like to do it in April, May, before the schools let out. beaches aren't crowded, the zoos aren't crowded.
Free parking.
Yeah, the parking lots, it's like great. And so like we always joke like we're done with the beach by the time summer comes because we've done the beach.
Exactly.
And it's great. That kind of flexibility is a huge pro.
Huge. Yeah.
Yep. All right. As always, if you have other questions, comments, concerns, you want to chat with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or at thevillagehomeschoolers@gmail.com. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks.